In this tutorial, we are going to start building the inventory management system, the API in Spring Boot, and we are going to be covering steps 1 to 8. We are going to create the Swagger documentation at the end of this video. Now, before we continue, I would like to just show you the inventory management system data model we are going to be using. So we want to understand what kind of inventory management system we are building. This system we are building is going to be able to perform customer order and also purchase order. What is the difference? A purchase order is when you want to buy items, you have a list of items you want to buy. This is an order you placed, and this you use it to restock your inventory and you have to pay for it. Now, a customer order is when someone places an order to your store and you have to fulfill this order, taking some items from your store to fulfill this order, and this person have to pay you. So we have the purchase order, that is an expense you are making, and the customer order, you are receiving some income. This system is going to perform the two. We also want to take note of something about items. An item is a specific item in your store. For instance, let's take for instance a 25 cl bottle of Coca-Cola. This is an item. The brand is Coca-Cola. The category may be drinks and the subcategory may be beverages or something. And the item is now 25 cl bottle of Coca-Cola. So you can see how it ranges from product, from brand, category, subcategory, and we have the item. Now the other item is the items placed in an order. So if an order is placed, there is a list of items that make up this order, and that's why we have the order item. We also have transactions. When a payment is made or payment is received, this is called a transaction, or a voucher is fulfilled. It's called a transaction. We also have the state, the country, the supplier, the customers. These are just basic things that you need to know about our inventory or about an inventory management system. So let's go ahead to get started. We are going to be starting to build this system. Of course, you need to have IntelliJ installed for you to proceed with this tutorial. And if you don't have IntelliJ installed, please pause this video and get IntelliJ installed, as we are going to be using it right now. So the first thing we need to do is to go to Spring Initializr and create a Spring Boot application from there. If you are using the IntelliJ Ultimate, it provides you opportunity to create a Spring Boot application using the IntelliJ Ultimate. But I use the community, and maybe you use the community edition too. So let's use the Spring Initializr, and there we can specify the details about our application, and then we can download the application generated for us. So we will need, I would like to name it com.Kyneton the genus. And the name of this application, I would like to call it InventoryMS Spring Boot API. InventoryMS Spring Boot API. And the reason is because subsequently we are going to be creating the Node.js API or the Python Django API or other API frameworks you might be using. But for now, we call it InventoryMS Spring Boot API. And I'm going to just give it a description. Inventory management. Okay, so at this point, we need to add a few dependencies. If you leave it at 3.3.4, that is fine, but make sure you have Java 17 on your system. And I'm using Java 17 right here. So let's now add a few dependencies. If you go to the steps, you'll see that we have a few dependencies we need to add. So the first one is Spring Boot Starter Security. So I'm going to add security. Okay, so we add the Spring Security, that is fine. And the next one is the MySQL connector, then configuration processor. So let's add MySQL connector. And we also need data JPA and then the web. And we also need the web. So Spring Web, that should be fine. And let's see, the last one we need is Lombok and also Spring Boot starter data REST. So we add the Lombok to help us with some boilerplate code generation. And we finally need the data REST. So let's see if we have it. Okay, I'm going to leave it for now, and we are going to add it by copying it from MVN repository. So let me leave this out for now. So I think everything should be fine, and I'm going to simply click on generate to generate, and I'm going to go right where it is in my local directory, and I will be able to unzip it from there. So I'm going ahead to unzip, just make sure you download it. Okay, so I have this application now in my local system. I would like to now open it with IntelliJ. So I'm going to go ahead to open it with IntelliJ. So as I mentioned before, I'm using IntelliJ, the community edition, which is free. And I'm going to go ahead to click on open. And when I click on open, I can select where it is. I have it. So you can see that we have opened it right here in IntelliJ. I don't know if you've subscribed to my channel, but if you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe by clicking on that subscribe button below. And if you've not watched the intro video, please watch the intro video. Maybe pause this video and watch that one, because it tells you what to expect in during this tutorial. So let's take a look at the SRC directory. So we have the main, and we have the Java, and we have nothing. So at this point, if you look at the steps, we have to do a number of things. Understand the database design, create the models. So we are going to create the models, right? So the models is right here. You see the link here to the models. So if you click on that link, it takes you to the models right here, the models folder where I have all the models. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to download this. I'm going to download it, and I'm going to use it in this application. So the first thing I'm going to do right here is to create a new package, and that package I'm going to call it models. Let's call it models. And in this models, I'm going to place all the files that I got from that link. So let me go to take all these files from the link. That link, I have it in my downloads. Let's see. So we have it right here. So I'm going to unzip it, and I'm going to copy everything from there. So this is everything. I'm going to do a Control A, and I'm going to save everything. So I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, so we have all the models copied into our package here. I think we might be able to. So we have InventoryMS. So I think it was able to package them correct, but then we have to remove some of these as well. I think this is InventoryMS SpringBoot. Okay, no problem. So let's go ahead to correct all the differences in the names. So we actually have to remove, in all of them, we are going to remove all these unnecessary imports. So go ahead to open all the files and remove those imports from there. Okay, so now I've removed all the imports with errors. We are going to add the package with the correct name, and that's the next thing I'm going to do. Now, if I go back to the steps, let's go back to the steps. The next thing we are going to be creating is, we created the models. We are now going to create the repositories. To create the repositories, I'm going to create the repositories package here. So I'm going to right click and create the repository package. Repositories. And we are going to get the content of the repositories right here. So I'm going to just open it in a new tab, and you can see the repositories right here. I'm going to right click here and click on download. And when it downloads, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy everything from that directory and paste it in there, and then correct the import statements with error. So let me do the same thing. So again, go ahead to open all of them and see if there are errors, and you simply remove those import statements. Don't tamper with any other thing inside the code, because we are going to import from the right package when we create this package. Okay, so at this point we are done with the repositories. Let's now go ahead to follow the steps. In this case, we are now going to work on the services. So I'm going to also do the same thing for the services. I'm going to go to the services directory on Drive, and I'm going to simply download it and then unzip it copy the content and paste it into the package I'm going to create. So here I'm going to create a new package. I'm going to call it services. And I'm going to take the file I downloaded, which is called services. I'm going to unzip the contents. And I'm going to copy the contents into the services package I created. So I'm going to copy the contents right into the services package. And I'm going to make the changes. Now, some of the logic in the services, I'm going to explain it as we go. So I don't want us to spend time just doing some theory. As we work on this project, we are going to be explaining as we go. So again, just focus on removing the import statements with errors. Don't correct any other thing, just the imports, because we are going to re-import these items from the right package after now. Okay, so now we are done with the services. Let's go ahead to do the same thing now for the REST controllers. So I'm going to create the package and I'm going to call this package controllers. And this is where I'm going to keep all the REST controllers for this application. So I'm going back to inventory to the page, sorry. So here now we have the REST controllers and I'm going to go to the completed controller files. And again, I'm going to simply right click and then I'm going to download. So once I download, I unzip, copy all the content of the zip of the file, and then use them in my inside the package I created. As before, we are going to open each of these controller files and then remove the import statements that gives errors. So I'm going to just do the same thing just like before. Again, if you have a way to do this thing easily, please let me know in the comment box below. For now, I don't know any way to do it or to even do it quicker. So let me know if you have any way you can do this. Okay, so right now we have all the assets we need in the application. And now we are going to do the imports of all the so we are now going to import all the classes in all the files. Now, I don't know if there's a way I could do this in the quickest way instead of having to do it one at a time. Basically, unfortunately, we are going to open all these files again and then re-import these classes one by one. So now I'm done with the controllers, and let me now move to the next one, and that is the models. So models, I think we just have auditable to import for all of them. So let's just do that. Actually, take note of the auditable we are going to be importing. Sorry, we have one more package we need to create, and that is the security package. Sorry, this is my mistake. This auditable we are going to import should be coming from the security package. So let's just not make any mistake here. Just delete. So if I go back to the page, let's see. Yes, file for the security package is right here. So yeah, I have it. So I'm going to just also download the security package and see security package download. Yeah, perfect. So we need to create one more package, and that's the security package. Sorry, that's my mistake. Open with archive utility. So I'm going to copy everything and I'm going to create a package called security, and I'm going to place all those in there. So one more package, and this is the last package we are going to be creating, and this is called security. Security package will hold all the classes and all the files related to Spring Security, Authentication, Authorization, auditing, and every other thing in that category. Okay, so I think we have to start from there. So Spring Security, yes, I think it's fine. Alt controller. Again, I'm going to just delete these ones and just continue in that way until I delete all of them. Okay, so in the security package, let's go ahead to actually the model. Let's go back to the models package. Now we can import the auditable from auditable is coming from our package, from the security package we created. So don't make any mistake of importing it from any other place. Okay, so I'm done with correcting all the import errors in the models directory, and I'm going to move on to the repository package. And I think repository package should be fairly clean, except for a few imports. Okay, so I'm done with correcting for the repository package, and now I'm going to move on to the security package. I think, security package, yes. Okay, so I think I've corrected all the errors and import exceptions. So what do we do next? Do we then go ahead to run this application? Well, there is one more thing we need to do. We need to add the annotation to the base class, and that annotation is going to be at enable JPA Auditing. So this annotation helps the application to recognize that we enable JPA auditing for our application and applies auditing to all our models that inherit JPA, that inherits the auditable class. So I'm going to enable JPA auditing. I'm going to also say auditor aware ref, and it's going to be auditor aware. Okay. And then we are going to create this auditor aware bean in our application. So I'm going to create the bean, and it's going to be public auditor. Sorry, mixing up things. Auditor aware, and it's going to be string because this auditor is the username of the logged in user. So we want to collect that username as string and use it for auditing, and the name is going to be auditor aware, and it's simply going to return new Spring security auditor aware, and this is what we should do. Okay. So this is, let me just cross check and see we don't have any errors. Auditor aware. Perfect. Now the next thing we want to do is to specify the database configuration for this application, because this application should connect to a database once you run it. So to do that, I'm going to go to resources and go to application. I'm going to specify a number of properties, and the first one is my database username, the password, and actually the database. So I'm going to say Spring the data source of password is equal to the password I use is root user. You can't use this password for anything, so let me close up the window. It's quite noisy outside. So this is a password, and I'm going to specify the username Spring data source. Can I find username? Source.username equal to root, and we now specify the data source URL. So spring.datasource.url. I think I can get from, let me see, can I use this? No. Okay, so it was trying to build up this URL. So it's going to be jdbc mysql and specify localhost running at port 3306 and /InventoryMS underscore DB. That is fine, and we are going to specify the server time zone is equal to UTC. Let me specify also the database to be MySQL, Spring.database. And we also need the driver class, so it's going to Spring.dataSource, the driver.class name is equal to com.mysql cj.jdbc.driver. Okay. So one more thing is that we want to specify how this database will be updated. So we want this database to be updated. Instead of having to recreate it, we have to update it using our models. So we should have an empty database, and when we run this application, it's going to update the empty database by creating our models in the database. So I'm going to say spring.dataSource dot, actually it should be JPA.hibernate.ddl auto equal to updates. Okay. So now there is just one more thing we need to do, and we have to create this database in MySQL. So I'm going to just copy this database name, and we are going to create it in MySQL. So I'm going to open up MySQL Workbench, and we are going to create this database, and that is all we need to do, and we are done. So let's see. While we wait for it to open, let me just see what next we have to do. Oh, after then we need Swagger documentation. That takes just a few minutes, a couple of minutes, just to add this dependency, and we have the Swagger documentation. By the way, I don't know why MySQL Workbench is not opening, so I'm going to quit it and try to reopen it once again. So this time I have MySQL Workbench open, so I'm going to go to my local instance, and I'm simply going to create a new database. Now pay attention to how I create a database in MySQL. So there's no create database. Simply right click on here and choose create schema, and simply give your schema a name. That is the name of the database we have in Spring, and just say apply, and that should be fine. So at this point, we have simply completed building our API. So I'm going ahead to run this application, and let's see if everything works well. It's going to start up this application, and it's going to create all those databases in MySQL. Just one more thing for us to see the SQL statements when it's creating these database object. So I'm going to say spring.jpa.showSQL is equal to true. And now I'm going to save everything. Now, one thing we see is that we don't have the wrong configuration. So I'm going to go ahead to click on this file, and you can simply click on run current file from the base file, and it's going to automatically create a wrong configuration for you. So I'm going to click on this, and let's see. Okay, so we have one or two things. So role is not imported. Yes, from here. I think that should be it. Let's go ahead to try again. Run current file. So everything seems to be working well. So Tomcat started on port 8080, as you can see right here. So we've done a good job. If you come to this point, thumbs up to you for getting up to this point. Let's now go to MySQL to see what we have, whether it actually created those database objects. So I'm going to refresh. Okay, we have it right here. And if I go to tables, you can see all our tables have been created in this new database. So we almost completed building this API. We also need to test this API. Let's first create the Swagger documentation and be able to see the documentation. And then next we are going to create a user. I think the first thing we want to do is to create a user. So what it means is if I try to access the database, our SpringBoot API, let's just go to 8080, let's just go to /products, for instance. We don't have a username and a password, so let's go ahead to create a new user for our application. To do that, we will need Postman REST client. I mentioned it at the prerequisites for you to install the Postman REST client. So I'm going to Postman REST client, and we are going to go to /register endpoint, and we are going to register a new user. So we have Postman opening up. Okay, we are already in the register endpoint right here. This is register. In the body, we are going to specify the username and the password, but I also want to specify the first name and the last name. So if I go back to check, the fields that need to be specified in the user objects. So let's go to the user model. So we have a number of fields. We have first name and we have the last name and the username. All right. So let's go specify the first name and the last name. And in that case, we can use these credentials, this new user we are creating, to log into the system. So username is Kenton. First name is then it's going to be first name is me as well, Kenton, and last name is my surname. And close this in quotes. Okay, put a comma here. So let's see if this user registers. If it registers, I'm going to be so excited that everything works as expected. So it's post, and we are going to just hit the sign. Let's see, signed. And it seems it worked. It created our user 201 created. So we can now use this user to actually log in. So if we go back to the browser, now the user is Kenton and the same password 2424, sign in, and we're able to sign in and we have empty. Now if I go back to just make sure that everything works as expected, and I go to products and I'm going to do this get request. Let me see the response. Oh yeah. So for me to be able to do this request, I'm going to specify the authorization header to be the basic authentication, and it's going to be the same username and the password. And at this point, if I send, I should have 200. Okay, so it's working, and it returns an empty because we don't have any products in our database. So finally, let's take the last step, and that is about the Swagger API documentation. And to do that is very easy. Simply copy this and add it as a dependency in your pom.xml, and you'll be good to go. So let's try it and let's see how it goes. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to my pom.xml right here, and I'm going to simply add this dependence here, and I'm going to refresh my Maven to import the dependencies. So I think everything should be fine. So now we added this dependency. How do we know, or how do we test that we have the Swagger documentation? I think we may have to restart this application, but just out of curiosity, let's try to access the Swagger documentation URL and let's see if we have it. So this is for my local host. I'm going to just copy it and then paste it in my browser here. If not, then we are going to go ahead to restart the application. So I'm going to go to stop the application and let's restart it. So this is where we are. So I'm going to stop. And I'm going to rerun this application one more time. Okay, so let's try the Swagger documentation UI one more time. Okay, so we have our Swagger UI coming up. We have OpenAPI definition. We have everything we've toiled for is right here, working as expected. Transaction, task, supplier, subcategory, project, product, other item, and everything is working perfectly. Congratulations, we've completed the first part, building the InventoryMS REST API backend. Although there's one more little thing we need to do, and that is implementing JWT authentication. We are going to come back to this. In the next part, let's go to the UI and build up the UI and be able to see how data comes from the backend to the UI, and then we proceed from there. I'd like to thank you for viewing. If you have any problem following this tutorial, leave me a comment immediately because we are going to be providing another video after now. So let me know what challenges you have. And also, if you didn't watch the previous one, please watch the intro. It's an intro One thing I also want to mention is please take some time to understand the inventory management system data model. So it's right here. Try to understand how the tables relate, how data flows, and the use of each of these tables you see right here. Remember, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe right now. Also, there's a thanks button. Support me by clicking on that thanks. And because your support gives me a lot of motivation to keep making this video for you. So we see in the next part.